Welcome to another episode of the Total R&B podcast. I am your host, Lorena, and today I have another great guest with me that I'm excited to interview. So this person is a reporter, he's a host, he's an MC, he's a radio and television personality. He's like basically everything that you need in media. He's been in this industry for many, many years. He is the founder of the Rudy Blair Entertainment Media Company. He has won, now this is a list of stuff, 16 radio, television, news director, Association National and Regional Awards, the Harry Jerome Award. He's been inducted into the Humber College Radio Broadcasting Hall of Fame, the Vaughn Road Academy Hall of Fame, and also received an honorary degree from Humber College, which is amazing. He has interviewed actors, politicians, artists, athletes, you name it. He's interviewed that person. Some of the artists that he's actually interviewed are, people like Justin Bieber, Julie Black, Marlon and Tito Jackson, Snoop Dogg. There is an array of people that he has interviewed, and it's amazing. He is currently the host of CMW Virtual Voices series that you can check out bi-weekly. And he is also the host of the Lemon Stage too. So welcome to the podcast, Rudy Blair.
Hey, Rudy. It's a pleasure to see you, and congratulations on your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk with me. So I'm super excited. Of course, I met you at CMW, but I've been following your career for many years. Everything that you do, I find it so amazing. And just to see your work and then be in a space while you're doing that work has been pretty amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So with the podcast, I always started off with the same question all the time because I love to see people's answers for this question. So it is, what is your first memory of R&B music? Like, what comes to mind when I say that?
Oh, my goodness. You got to remember, I'm 6 times older than you. So I go way back. If I had to go for a memory, it would probably be my dad. And the reason why I'll say that is because growing up in Toronto, if you know that era back in the late 60s, early 70s, most Black people in Toronto, I would say Friday, Saturday, and sometimes Sunday, it was music night. Meaning you could be watching television, but at the same time, Dad is playing music off of his stereo. So he could be playing anything from the Temptations to the Spinners to, Diana Ross and the Supremes. It could be any one of those artists or more. So, growing up, you like I said, you'd be lying there, you'd be watching TV. Dad is now playing the music. And what was really cool was back then, you never know who was coming to the house too. I mean, nobody, because there's no text messages or anything like that. So somebody could come over to the house. Next thing you know, somebody else is coming to the house because word just got around. And then the next thing you know, you have almost like a party that nobody really planned. That people are around, the guys are talking here, the women are talking here, the kids are playing, and then suddenly a parent turns around and says, "Hey, so-and-so, do that dance you used to do." And next thing you know, the kids are all dancing. So when it comes to first memory of that, I would say it would be my dad from playing his music, and which sort of transcended to my older brother, who became a DJ, and to myself and the rest of my family doing what they do.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that memory with us. But that's why I love that question, because it always brings up a happy moment for people, and they get to share, go down memory lane and share like a really good time that they had, especially with family too, which is really important. So that's super awesome. And so I want to get into broadcasting because I wanted to know, is this something that you wanted to do as a kid?
Oh, hell no.
Oh,
no. I've told this story before, but it's kind of funny because I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It was actually my older brother Colin who talked about getting into radio broadcasting, but he decided at some point he didn't want to do it. He liked DJing, he liked playing at parties and things like that. So on my last year at Vaughn Road Academy, which at the time was known as Vaughn Road Collegiate, I got called into the administration and, the office. I'm sitting there, and the guidance counselor is saying, "Hey, Rudy, you haven't applied for anything. Like, what are you going to do?" Had no clue. The only thing that came up to mind was I said, "Okay, how about radio broadcasting?" Okay. So I decided to go into radio broadcasting. So we filled out a bunch of applications, and um, it's kind of funny because I didn't get in.
Oh,
I did get into Humber College, but I didn't get in for radio broadcasting because they were like, apply for two things. Apply for radio broadcasting, but then apply for something else that could be easy to get in. So I also applied for general business, got into general business at Humber College, didn't get into radio broadcasting. So for 1 year, I took general business, reapplied for radio broadcasting. And back then, I don't know if it still goes on now, but back then, if you're already in that climate, 9 times out of 10, you can just jump around to anything. Reapplied for radio broadcasting and got in. But it wasn't a full-time course that I saw that I got in. It was actually a weekend course.
oh,
And
wow.
which I actually think is better because I didn't have to worry about electives and things like that. It was just strictly radio. So I was in a small class of students, and from 9 to 5, we learned strictly radio. You didn't have to do anything else, but it was all strictly radio Saturday and Sunday, and which helped me be able to work during the week. So I was working in a warehouse and go to school on the weekends. It was a 2-year course. My second year, I was able to get a job at a station that doesn't exist anymore. It was called CKO. It was an all news and information station. They had stations across Canada, but it was one of the low end radio stations. I mean, the ratings were so low, colleges stations had more listeners. But it was a great learning experience because it was kind of one of those things where you got in at the beginning of your career, and a lot of the old school guys who were there were the guys who were just finishing up their careers. So they were the most very imaginative, very good, but very back then very let's just say it's not as easy as it is today. So
Okay.
I got a job working as an op, meaning, of course, I played the commercials and I would run newsreels and things like that overnight. And it was a full-time job. So for 1 year, I was working Sunday nights from 12 till 8 a.m.,
Mhm.
Sunday night to Thursday night, and going to school Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5. And
Pretty
great
good.
learning experience, but it was hell because I had never worked overnights before. So, you're just in a daze and then you're going to school and, you never, it was hard. It was very hard, but it was great because by the time when I graduated, they'd moved me to evenings. Yay, no more overnights.
Okay.
And I was working in Toronto full time. Whereas my other folks that I was going to school with, they were all trying to get jobs anywhere, and a
Yeah.
lot of them didn't. But I was working full time. So, and knock on wood, I never had to leave Toronto. All my jobs were here in Toronto, so I'm very, very happy about that.
No, that's really good because a lot of people have to move to different
Yes,
places in order to grow their career, but you've been able to, sustain and grow your career at home. So that's pretty cool.
and I would still suggest for younger folks, yes, go if you get a job in London, Ontario, or Owen Sound, or wherever the outskirts are, go because that's where you need to make your mistakes. That's where you need to grow. That's where you need to learn. That's when, don't complain about if you got to do a report on the quilt festival that they have. It's a learning experience that's going to help you to go to the semi majors and then the major places, cities across Canada.
No, that's good advice too. And I also liked how you said in the beginning you didn't know what you wanted to do when it came to education later on, because I find so many of us get to that point and we're so stressed out. We have stress like from our parents that want us to like enter into certain fields and we don't know. But I always tell people to try different things. So I like that you said that because a lot of people get so worried. And I like how you just, you tried it out, something that your older brother wanted to do, but it's, worked out quite well for you.
Well, the funny thing is too, like I ended up becoming an on-air personality, and that's not what I wanted to do. Also, I wanted to do production.
Mhm.
Just there wasn't production jobs open, and I was still pushing buttons. But I'll tell you the story and how I went from pushing buttons to doing what I do now. It's a bit of a long story, but I'll try to cut it down. But I'll tell you about that later on.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Oh, you want me to tell you now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or,
Well,
like,
here's the
anything
thing.
you could share with us?
Sure, sure. Okay. So once CKO was over, the station closed. I was there for about 5 years, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was working in a warehouse for a short time,
Mhm.
but I wanted to do production, and I got into a production house. The guys who would um, add sound to commercials and movies and things like that, and even some music recording. I had a great time doing it, and it was again great learning experience. But this is when we still had reels. This isn't all digital or anything like that. So I was an assistant engineer, and I had to come in early. I would have to adjust the reels with tones and things like that, and sit back and have my engineer tell me what to do and to help with the sessions and things like that. And I did that for a couple of years. Great learning experience. But again, the industry was changing because around that time when my original radio station closed, that's when Black Tuesday happened. And
What's
people
Black
remember back in the 80s and 90s, Black Tuesday was when basically the stock market plunged and a lot of people lost their jobs. We didn't go into the depression, but it was pretty close to that. So a lot of people were losing jobs. Companies were going down, and two of the companies I worked for ended up being affected by that. And when I was doing audio recording, the company got bought out by another company, and then the company started letting people go, and I got let go again. So tough times. Had to decide what I wanted to do. Realized that let me go back to radio. Ended up getting two part-time jobs, working weekends and 2 days weekends, 2 nights overnight at All Hit 680 CFTR when I was still playing music, and the Fan 590. That's the all sports station, and I did that for about a year. All Hit 680 became 680 News in the transition. I was given a morning show full time job at 680.
Okay.
So I started back doing that again, almost like what I was doing at CKO. The only problem was I was doing it for a long time and wasn't feeling it. I mean, I'm pushing the same buttons, I'm doing the same thing. I wanted some kind of transition. So I kind of thought to myself, what can I do? Well, Gloria Martin, who I consider one of my mentors, she was doing traffic, but she was also doing entertainment because the station was still trying to figure out what was needed, what wasn't needed. And by the way, the station went from All Hit 680 CFTR to like 680 News, like really low on the totem
Oh,
pole.
okay.
And so I asked Gloria, hey, can I help you out with what you're doing with entertainment? She said, sure. So she helped me develop in being able to do movie reviews and doing stories, but my reporting was lousy. And my stuff would only be played overnight. And my writing was weak. And it was just like, it was so bad. But I learned and I developed.
Yeah.
And I would do my 8 hour shift at 680 News, and then I would be there for another 8 hours doing my entertainment, not getting paid, and just learning. And eventually, I got kind of tired of what I was doing there, and I had to think to myself, I need to figure out how I can stand out.
Mhm.
But I love music, grew up on music. Why not do music reporting and interviewing artists that come to town? So I call up all the record stations and their rate record companies, and they're like, "Who the hell are you? We don't know you. Your station's got nothing." Click. So I would try to interview indie artists,
Mhm.
and it was people that you would never have heard of or known or anything like that. And I'm trying to do these interviews and put them on the air. And I've got people going, who's this? Nobody cares. So I had a tough time getting stuff going. Well, sure enough, there was an artist who had a song called Butterfly Kisses. And it was a kind of like a gospel country song. It was being played on our sister station, CHFI. And this individual came down to the station and he was being interviewed. One of my bosses and the music director for CHFI said, hey, look, we've got a music reporter here over at 680 News. Do you mind doing an interview with him? So guy's like, yeah, I'm here. Do it. So I'm trying to write everything up and figuring everything out because to me, this is major. And we go into the booth and we do the interview. The artist loved the interview I did.
Oh,
And he says to me, hey, look, I've got a show coming up over at the CNE Grandstand. Do you want to introduce me? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I do that. And I put this thing together and I air it. Now, anybody who knows about 680 News, which is now City News 680, it's an all news station, but the interviews that you would put up are only like a minute or
okay.
less. So I had to figure out how can I add music to this, find the right clips to put together, and keep this under a minute. Difficult, but I was able to figure it out, and I did it. The company at the time, I do believe it was BMG, the guy who was there, Warren Kopnick, love him to death, says, hey, you know what? We got a lot of new artists coming out. Why don't you interview them? I was like, oh, gosh, yeah. Well, the funny thing is, those artists ended up being Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC. Who else am I thinking of? Just basically those artists that were just starting out. Nobody knew who the heck they were.
Wow.
So I'm interviewing these artists and I'm putting it on the air. And of course, because they're new, nobody knows who they are.
Mm-hmm.
But so again, tough time. Who are these artists and whatever? But the company's loving what I'm doing. And some of the other companies hear what I'm doing. So they're like, hey, we got new artists too. You want to interview them? So now I'm interviewing all these new artists who would later become major artists like the Michael Bublé's and the Nickelbacks and the Avril Lavigne's. Like I'm interviewing these people when nobody gave a damn about them. Taylor Swift, right now, one of the biggest artists in the world. I interviewed her, at a Tim Hortons. Nobody knew who the heck she was. Nobody cared. She was a gawky, skinny young lady, you know. So I'm interviewing all these artists. The one that changed everything was my interview with Phil Collins. And Warner Music gives me a call and says, hey, Phil Collins is in town. He just sort of arrived. I think you're going to be the only one person getting him. Do you want to come down and interview him? Run down there. They bring me into a boardroom. And next thing I know, Phil Collins walks in with the rep. Rep goes, Rudy, Phil Collins, Rudy Blair. We'll give you a half hour. So I do my interview with him. And we talk about a lot of things. And so I put the stuff together and I air it. I didn't tell anybody at the station that I was doing this. I wanted to surprise them. So I go back to the radio station. I'm working throughout the evening and night. I literally sleep on the floor there. I put it together. I get it together and they air it. And practically everybody thought that this was a fake interview. And they thought that I had taken clips from some other interview and just added my voice in. I had to recut the interviews so that you could hear the conversation before anybody believed that, yes, I spoke with Phil Collins. And at the time, of course, it's not like I could have taken a picture with Phil Collins because we didn't have phones like that. I was taking photo pictures, so my pictures weren't going to be developed until, I got them done. So now suddenly it's a big thing. Oh my goodness, Rudy Blair actually interviewed Phil Collins. Next thing I know, I'm interviewing LL Cool J. and that becomes a big thing. And then after that, I'm interviewing Seal, and I'm interviewing a lot of now bigger artists. And now it's a mix of new artists and bigger artists. I set up a deal with Much Music, and I said to them, "Hey, look, you guys have this thing called Intermittent Interactive. Let
Yeah.
me come down. I will first talk about the show, but let me come down, watch, and let me interview the artists there." They're like, "Yeah, come on down, do that." Fantastic. Much Music Video Awards. I go, I will do a report on it before the show, and I will do reports after the show if you allow me to come down. Come down. I literally, for a couple of years, I was the only person doing interviews at the Much Music Video Awards and doing it live at the Much Music Video Awards. Because back then, they were only getting little write ups.
Yeah.
I made deals with other radio stations like Z103 when they would have their big summer jams
Mhm.
over at Canada's Wonderland. And I would say, look, I can't mention Z103, but I can say big concert happening here. And I would go down there and I would do live hits on our radio station. And I would interview the artist backstage. And then I had all this content that I could put on for the rest of the week or 2 weeks or whatever else. So I was making deals all over the place, as many people as possible. And a lot of the stuff I did not getting paid.
Mm.
I did it on my own time, weekends, nights. But the thing I saw something growing to the point where I'm getting P. Diddy, Puff Daddy back then, and I'm getting
Yeah.
Jennifer Lopez, and I'm getting all these major artists. And it definitely grew from there. So sorry, I said I was going to make it short, but it ended up being long. But
No, but I love that. Sorry to cut you off, but you dropped so many gems within that story that people could learn from, because I find, especially today, we have all these metrics and stuff that puts like a value on our work, and I find a lot of people are trying to rush to get those big names like a Puff Daddy or a J Lo, but I like that you started off with the indie artist, and you spoke to the artist, probably giving them one of their first interviews ever, and through that you were able to hone your skills, build it up. Other people are seeing your work, right? And you're getting out there, and then you're building. A lot of people just want to start at the top. So
and I want to add something in between the indie artists and the major artists. Canadian country artists were really the first ones to allow me to be in their world and do interviews. So I was interviewing the Paul Branson, the Terry Clarks, and the Michelle Brants, and who are now considered Canadian country artist legends. I was interviewing them too. And they were very welcome, which is one of the big reasons why I'm very attached with Canadian country music, because when I couldn't get certain artists, they would always be available to speak. And not just Canadian country, even American country. They didn't care if you were a small whatever. They made time to speak to you in person or over the phone or anything like that. So I'll never forget that too. Plus, because it was an all new station, it wasn't like it was a hip hop station. It wasn't a top 10. I was able to interview anybody I wanted to. So I was doing country, hip hop, rock, pop, classical. I was being able to interview all different types of genres, which I think really helped me grow and understand how it all worked. And doing a lot of red carpets and things like that was great, because it would be to a point where if I was doing the MMVAs or if I was doing the Juno Awards or anything like that, practically anybody who came down the red carpet knew me. But it wasn't that way for everybody else, because they only knew certain artists for their genre.
Yeah.
So my interviews would be different, and still will be different from their interviews, because now mine is more a personal effect than, hi, I just met you kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. No, this has been really, like, I'm taking in this information myself. This has been very, like, insightful, because for me as well, I never wanted to be in the forefront. I always worked behind the scenes. That's what I like doing. So even the radio station I created in Montreal called the Morning Detour, I started out just as a producer. I would book guests, I would do the social media, like anything that has to do with like behind the scenes. I'm there. If there was a cameraman in the studio, I'm behind the cameraman, like nowhere, don't want to be seen. But again, things happen and I came out into the forefront. And then my love of music and just talking to different artists brought me here. So I relate to that too. And I want to ask because you like name dropped a lot of amazing artists that you got to interview. What are some of like if you could name two of your most memorable interviews, what would they be?
Well, I already told you about Phil Collins because I always mention Phil Collins because that was the kickoff. That was really the kickoff. The one that for me personally was amazing, and you may be too young for him, but will always be Barry White.
Oh, I know Barry White.
Just checking. Just checking. Because anybody who knows Barry White from back in the 70s, the maestro of love, the deep voice, the sexy songs, he's just an amazing person. And I grew up on Barry White. And I used to play his music, the Love Unlimited Orchestra, things like that. I used to, I loved listening to him. And I had tried to get him when things were really rolling. I wanted to get him for the longest time. And there's a reason why. And a rep finally was able to set up a phone interview with me, with him. And I was just like so excited. And so we do this phone interview and, he's got the deep voice going and we talk about his career and we really connected.
Okay.
And I still have it on mini disc. And one of these days I'm going to replay it. And the reason why was because I wanted to get him because it was a few weeks before Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did my interview with him. And then I said, okay, Barry, he told me to call him Barry. I wanted to call him Mr. White, but he's going to call him Barry. Can I get Valentine's Day advice, romance advice from Barry White? Sure. So I asked him all these questions, like what's the song to play for, if you want to romance your lady from, Barry White's music. And he told me, I said, how do you treat a woman? Like, how should you set it up? And I shouldn't say woman. I should say your partner.
Yeah.
And, and he's telling me to do this and that. And it was just great stuff. And he did I think he was one of the first artists to really do this for me. He did a 680 News ID.
Okay.
Meaning, of course, hi, this is Barry White on 680 News, wishing all my people love on Valentine's Day. So again, I cut this all up. I put these features together. I save them for Valentine's Day. I set up the IDs and everything else. And I told only certain people that I was doing this because I love surprises.
Okay.
And so Valentine's Day, we run it. Phone calls. Is that really Barry White? That's Barry White. I was freaking people out, from listeners to our own people going, is that really Barry White's giving advice about it? Like it was amazing. And the running the IDs and things like that. Like it was just, it was a really great pat on the back for myself. And I learned that those were the kind of things I really enjoyed, trying to figure out how to be creative with what you have, not just doing the, hey, you got to, what's your career like, blah, 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 but trying to do different things. So every year after that, I would try to find somebody who was like, maybe, I don't know, a Michael Bolton or somebody who was, into the romantic music, and they would give their Valentine's Day advice. So I was running that for a couple of years. I would ask artists after my interview, give me your favorite Halloween story. Give me your favorite Thanksgiving story. Give me your favorite Christmas story or your favorite Christmas present. And I would save this stuff. And when the holidays came up, I would cut them all together, put them together, and I would run them on those special days. And a bit of a lie. I told you there are two. There's actually three. The other one, and I'm sorry I'm going so long.
No, I'm loving these stories.
Okay. The other one would be I could at least say is a friend of mine is Gordon Lightfoot.
Okay.
the legend. And the reason why is when I first met Gordon Lightfoot, Gordon was still going through his problems. And when I met him, he wasn't in a good place. And I didn't want to go near him. I didn't want to make him angry or anything. And a few years later, after that first meeting, I get a phone call out of nowhere. And I'll do the imitation of it. And it's like, hello, 680 News, Rudy speaking. Hello, Rudy. Yes, this is Gordon Lightfoot. Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir? Rudy, I got a question for you. Yes. Why have you never interviewed me?
Oh, wow.
Because, sir, I never thought I could ever get an interview with you. Well, would you like to talk to me? Yes. What's good for you, sir? How about tomorrow? Okay. I can come down to the station. Okay, sir. Okay, so let's do it at this time and I'll see you tomorrow. I hang up. I run over to my boss. I tell him, the news director, I said, Gordon Lightfoot's coming. It's like, what? And I told him the story. So the next day, I go downstairs in the lobby. There's little Gordon just sort of sitting there. His driver is waiting outside. I've got security going, we saw him, but we didn't know if we could say anything to him. I said, don't worry. So I go through, I introduce myself, shakes my hand. He's waving at people. We go upstairs. Now, this is a completely different Gordon Lightfoot to I met. Mm-hmm. And we sit down and we talk for about 45 minutes to an hour. And one of the things he said was he was a big fan of my work. And he just wanted to know why I never had the chance to interview him. I never told him about that first incident. I just told him I just never thought I could get an interview with him. From there, we became actually friends. I even had his cell number. And I could call him and say, Gordon, you want to do a phone interview? Or, yeah, let's do it. You know, I got a tour coming up. And we would do that. He did this big Christmas story for me that we ran on Christmas Day about what it was like in Aurelia with him growing up. And one of the most interesting things was, I don't know if you remember this or not, but several years ago, there was a report that Gordon Lightfoot had passed away. And radio stations were starting to play his music, and news stations were all, putting obits. And I'm sitting there because my, people are coming to me going, hey, we got to put something together for Gordon. I'm going, if Gordon Lightfoot died, somebody would contact me. Nobody contacted me. So I was going on the air saying that, there are reports that Gordon Lightfoot died. But we're not going to say that he did. We're going to try to find, and we're going to find out, we're going to try to confirm this. So I'm going through trying to find people to find out what's going on. Ronnie Hawkins, another legend, I was able to get a hold of him, and he went on the air with me to say that a reporter had called him to say that Gordon Lightfoot had passed away. So that's how the story got around. But he said he really can't confirm it. So I'm still calling Gordon on his cell phone. Finally, I got to his office, phone his office. They're like, no, Gordon just left from a meeting. And so I hang up, I go on the air. I'm telling people everything as we're going along. And I'm going, Gordon, if you hear this, because I know you love to listen, please call me. Next thing I know, Gordon calls me, Rudy. I'm like, Gordon, you okay? He said, yeah. You heard about this stuff. Yeah. Can you go on the air with me? Of course. So we rush in, we get it up there. And the announcers are like, we have rumors that Gordon Lightfoot passed today. 680's Rudy Blair is not going to confirm this. Rudy, folks, let's just get right to it. Gordon, are you there? And he goes on the air, and we talked a bit on the air, and we hang up and we do the story. So we confirm it. Now, there's a documentary out on Gordon Lightfoot after he passed away, and really passed away. And there are people who are saying that they were the first. I'm going to say this. Personally, I believe I was the very first person to get a hold of him. But if not, I'm definitely one of the top 2 or 3 for him to contact. But I actually believe I was the very first person to get him to confirm this. So again, for me, that's another pat on my back to have these kind of relationships with people and to be able to break stories like this. It was one of the biggest stories I ever broke. The other one wasn't so much as I broke, but was involved with was Whitney Houston passing away.
Oh, okay.
And I was covering the Grammy Awards. Rogers had the rights to the Grammys, so they would send myself and another announcer from CHFI to the Grammys. And I remember I happened to be looking for a taco downtown, and I started getting radio station calls from my radio station saying, "I think something's going on with Whitney Houston." And so I run back to my hotel, turn on the TV. Whitney Houston has passed away, and this is like 24 hours before the Grammys are supposed to happen. So I grab my equipment, run downstairs. I'm interviewing people who did not even know Whitney passed away. So I'm getting first reaction. I'm going back to the station. I'm playing this stuff. I'm doing live hits for city TV and other stations, and TV stations are calling me. So I'm trying to put stuff together, and I'm doing all of this stuff. It was an amazing experience to do with Whitney Houston passing away. It's one of, and it might still be on YouTube because sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But it's one of the greatest experiences I ever had. It was just like when Michael Jackson passed away. I was at a Winners, got a call from the radio station. They're saying, I think something's going on with Michael Jackson. I literally am walking in the station. They go, Rudy, Michael Jackson passed away. Went right into the booth, flicked on the microphone, no script or nothing, and just talked and was doing that. So I've had some pretty major stuff happen.
Yeah.
But it's from learning and making mistakes and figuring out what works for you and what doesn't work for you.
That's really important. But another thing too, that I liked what you said when you were talking about Gordon Lightfoot is that you actually went into like research and like figure out like, did he really pass away? Did he not pass away? To get the correct information to give to your listeners. Because a lot of times now there's still those rumors that fly around with different celebrities saying that they passed away or something happened, and it's totally false, but people just take the story and run with it. Like I find no one is trying to contact the family or contact their team to find out what is really going on. So I think that's also an important thing to know for anybody that wants to be in the same industry, is to really do your research.
I don't know if you remember or not. If you remember, there were rumors about Lil Wayne dying
Yeah,
several years
I
ago.
felt at a certain time it kept happening.
I sat at my radio station almost all night because I refused to say that he had passed away. And when I finally got confirmation that he didn't, that's when I went on the air to talk about. It's not about being first, it's about being right. That is a reputation that you want. You just don't, I mean, even now, when I will see things come out and saying so-and-so passed away, depending, of course, what the source is. If I know it's a certain reliable source, then I will go with it. If it's something that's early, I will keep checking and keep checking and keep checking and keep checking until I know there's a confirmation from either the family or something like that says, yes, he did, or this person did pass away. And one thing I want to add too, TMZ, when TMZ first started, TMZ was considered a joke. They became serious when Michael Jackson passed away. And they were the first ones to announce it. Nobody believed them. They got it right. And since then, TMZ became a major. So it is all about getting that right information.
No, exactly. And another thing that's been important throughout this entire interview with you is that you have created these relationships with these artists, right? So they trust you. Like every time you see someone like come to you for an interview, they're happy, they're excited. So what would you say makes a good interview?
Research, number one. It drives me crazy if I'm standing at a red carpet, if I hear somebody else's interview with somebody and they have no clue on what's going on, or they think they know so much about an artist, and you're like, no, everybody knows that question, and they're looking at you like, what? Or asking a question that somebody has or everybody else has asked, because 9 times out of 10, this is the way I always looked at it. When an artist gets to me, they've already been on all the major television shows in the US, all the major radio stations in the US, and even major radio stations in Canada. So by the time they get to me, they've already been asked certain questions 1,000 times. Yes, there are one or two questions that you need to ask to complete your interview, but try to come up with things that are different. The other thing goes back to the research. When I had to do my research, I would have to buy Billboard magazine, Right On, like all these Ebony, whatever, rock magazines. I'd have to go and buy these magazines to read. Thank goodness the PR people will give you a sheet of paper that will give you information and things like that. I had to read all this stuff before I did my interview. Today, all you got to do is go on your phone, follow the person to see what they've done that day. Yep. A lot of people don't do that because for them, it's not about doing an interview. It's about, let me get my picture so I can get a selfie so I can post on social media. That's it. A lot of them don't want to do the research and the hard work. The other thing that I learned is in my 30 plus years, I have barely ever written down questions. Oh, okay. The reason why I don't do that is because I keep it in my head what I want to ask. I listen to what the person is saying because I may be going into a certain thought and how I want to go with this interview. That person may say something and I'm going, whoa, wait a second. And then suddenly my interview has changed. A great example is one of the best R&B Canadian artists is Jordan. And I remember several years ago, he and I were doing an interview where we were going to talk about new music that he had out. And as we were speaking in the beginning, he just kind of off cuff mentions to how, almost died. And I had this going on and this. And I'm going, whoa, wait a sec. What do you mean you almost died? Yeah, my interview flipped. Suddenly now we're talking about how a near death helped inspire his album. And I know nobody else had that conversation. That's where the trust comes in when an artist can say something like that to you. My thing is always this. There's the artist, there's me, and they're the fans. I'm the middleman. I'm hoping to be asking the questions that the fans would love to ask that artist, but can't. So I'm asking those questions, and maybe something different to that artist. And then that artist is answering, trusting me with their answer, and I'm passing it back to the fan. Because a thing a lot of reporters don't understand is no matter what you're asking, 9 times out of 10, the fan knows a hell of a lot more about the artist than you do because they're a fan. So you got to do your best job in asking questions that hopefully that fan might not know about. But at the same time, they want other things confirmed. Mm-hmm. I'm just the middleman for that. The other biggest problem I find with reporting is people in my position start thinking that they're as big as the celebrities that they're speaking with. No, you're not. You are quote unquote local media personalities. And when I say local, meaning, of course, because I was working with 680 News, because they played my stuff across the country, certain cities knew who I was. Mm-hmm. They knew me who I was in Toronto. They knew my voice. And because I would do some TV stuff and things like that, they knew my face. But if I went down to Florida or whatever, you think anybody's going to know who the hell I am? Come on. Nobody knows who I am. Local personalities. I ain't Tom Cruise. I ain't Taylor Swift. I ain't Oprah. Those are mega celebrities. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, major celebrities. I'm a local personality who hopes that you listen to what I've done and appreciate what I've done. That's it. When you start thinking you're the celebrity, like the celebrity, you might as well kill your career.
Now, that is true. I do have to agree with that because you do see that sometimes in this industry. And it's so small, too, especially here in Canada. So it's really important to, kind of check the ego as you go along.
Big time.
But
Big time.
Another thing, too, because the industry is so small, like how do you, any advice to maintain like relationships within the industry?
Industry is changing all the time. Yeah. When I first started, the people that I would share red carpets with, 95% of them are no longer there. There's young people there. The PR people I've dealt with, a lot of them aren't there anymore and new ones come in.
Mhm.
So you have to always do what you can to maintain with these new group of people, because the turnover is changing a lot. And hopefully, if you're doing good work, no matter who takes that position, they're going to want to maintain and still work with you. That's where it comes to your work and what you do. With Rudy Blair Entertainment Media being on my own, I always try to post an interview one every day, meaning, of course, Monday to Friday. Sometimes I'll post on the weekends. This week, as we speak, I'm only posting Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But I try to make sure that I keep a good rotation going, so that even if somebody who may not know who I am goes on and sees this guy's continuously going. Some people will do one interview and just keep running it for a month. Nobody cares. They
Yeah.
don't. Move on. Get the next one on. So that's why I try to do what I do, and it's made a difference. But it's kind of funny too, because as I told you, sometimes I'll be on the red carpet or whoever, and I'll see these new crop of reporters, entertainment reporters come in, and they'll start talking amongst themselves. They'll see me with my little camera and my microphone, and they're just kind of like, "Who's this guy?" You know? And I'm just like, "That's fine. That's
Mhm.
fine." Because when the celebrity or whoever is walking down the red carpet and they say me, which has happened many a time, I've had it where an artist or whoever is talking to somebody, sees me, literally stops in mid sentence, walks over to me, gives a big hug, and goes, "Okay, get." I'm like, "Dude, go back, go back."
Yeah.
Okay, they go back, they finish it up, and then they come over to me and they immediately do the interview. And the person next to me or whoever is looking like, "What the hell just happened there?" And
Trying to figure out who that guy is.
once it's done, most of the time they'll come over and say, "Hi, my name is so and so. I just want to know, who's this guy everybody knows." When I'm at a press conference, again, especially if it's Junos or whoever, I'll have a lot of it. I can call them kids sitting there, and they're all, and they got their questions and they want to ask stuff, and they're thinking what they're asking, and they're doing their radio voice to ask the questions, and then I'm just sitting back and I'm just put my hand up. The first reaction is, "Hey, Rudy, how's it going?" "Good, man, good." And then I'll ask my question. They'll take their time answering it. They can take 5 minutes or whatever, whereas the other person, they only did it quick 2 minutes or 1 minute or whatever. And then by the time it's done and I'm packing up, I'll have those kids coming over going, "Hi, my name is so and so. I just need to know, who are you and how is it that everybody knows who you are?" It's because I do my research. I interview the big stars when I can, but I also interview the smaller stars. And the reason why is those smaller stars will become big stars. Like I said, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, all of these artists, I was interviewing them when nobody gave a damn about them. When they became big, and we still maintain some kind of relationship, when they walk down, they come over immediately over to me, because they can trust me and they know I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. I was there when nobody cared.
I love that. Man, I have like so many more questions to ask you. We're gonna have to do this again because you
Sure,
just
we can do a part two.
so much information to give, and there's just so much to learn from you. So thank you so much for all of these stories you gave and all these lessons. These are like amazing. So before I let you go, I do want to play a quick game of R&B trivia. I'm going to ask you 6 questions.
Oh gosh.
They're all going to be multiple choice. It's going to be a good time. Don't worry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we'll see how you do. Don't worry. You got this. You got this.
I do bad, you edit that out.
No problem. I will do that. I got
Okay.
I got you. Okay,
Okay.
so question 1.
Mhm.
Which Canadian singer slash songwriter had her first single released on Quincy Jones's album Q's Juke Joint? Is it A. Deborah Cox, B.
Deborah Cox.
C. No, Jackie Richardson, or D. Tamia?
I do believe it's Deborah Cox. No. Who is it?
Tamia.
It was Tamia. Oh, okay. I've only interviewed Tamia maybe once or twice. So, I thought it was
Yeah.
Deborah Cox. I know Deborah Cox had the first major. No, Deborah Cox was with oh gosh, what are they called again? The ones who did Janet Jackson.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. That was Deborah Cox. So okay. Let's do the next one.
But yeah, it's Tamia that was with Quincy Jones. She had
Yes.
2 songs on that album.
Yeah.
So second one,
Mhm.
this Canadian singer crossed over to the US and became a television host of the popular countdown music video show 106 in Park.
Yes, and she just hosted the Legacy Awards, but go ahead.
No, you know the answer.
No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Just say it.
A. Keisha Shante, B. Melanie Fiona, C. Alicia Cara, or D. Nelly Furtado.
Definitely A. And I'll tell you something. I was interviewing her when she was a youngin', and to watch her grow up is amazing. Mind you, when she posts pictures of herself in bikinis, I'm like, because she's still that little girl for me. But we had a very nice chat just a little while ago before she was hosting the Legacy Awards. We did an interview, and she's just an amazing person. I am so proud of her, and she did confirm her and Bow Wow never dated or anything. And she even said too, she was like, yeah, like a lot of people were like, don't you let Bow Wow near you, we'll keep him away. So
yeah, no, she's
great.
amazing. She's been doing it for so long. I remember I have her albums and everything. So yeah, love her. Next question.
Mm-hmm.
Which artist sang the following songs? 7 Day Fool.
Oh, come on.
Set It Off and Running. Who you got?
Come on, it's the queen. It's the queen of R&B, but go ahead.
No, well, give us the answer. I don't have multiple choice for that one.
The queen, come on. It's the queen, Julie Black.
Correct.
Bow to the queen, and so happy for her because again, I interviewed her from back in the day, and the Black Jays, and seeing what she's become and knowing all the trials and tribulations she's gone through. I'm so happy and proud of her. She's become such a great role model.
No, definitely. And I remember I got to see her live. It was the Canadian Live Music Awards with CMW.
I was there. There.
And she did such an amazing job. She's the entertainment, of course, the singing. I was like, oh, this is super dope. So I was happy she got to do that. And then also seeing her perform at the Legacy Awards too was amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. Question 4.
Mm-hmm.
Which R&B singer, this is a Canadian R&B singer, debut album was titled World Outside My Window that released classic songs such as Don't You Forget It and It's Not Fair?
Oh, go ahead.
Is it A, Glenn Lewis, B, John Vinyl, C, Ray Robinson, or D, Melanie Durant?
Glenn Lewis. When I first met him, he was such a pure soul. And at that time, we were having all these great Canadian R&B artists coming out and being, signed by U.S. labels. So it was almost like the U.S. labels are trying to disguise our artists and say, no, they're from the States. No, they're from Canada. Glenn is one of the purest performers ever. In fact, there's a video of him. I think he's performing a Stevie Wonder song out right now. And I hadn't seen him for the longest time. And about 2 years ago, I ran into him on a red carpet. We did the interview. He gave me his number. We did a Zoom interview, and we've been doing Zoom interviews since because we go back together. And I'm so happy with his success. He deserves the respect, and so glad that he's still releasing music. No, an amazing person.
Yeah, no, he's one of my favorite voices in R&B is Glenn Lewis. I could listen to him all the time. And I actually just interviewed this producer. His name is Casey Phillips.
Yes.
Yeah. So he was telling me that Glenn Lewis is working on an album. So I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh, because I've been waiting for years.
And Glenn doesn't age. That's the scariest part.
Exactly. He looks exactly the same.
Yeah.
Exactly. I love it. So I'm excited for that. Question 5. Name the singer who won traditional R&B soul recording of the year 3 times in a row at the Juno Awards from 2021 to 2023?
Oh,
Is
of course,
it
I covered it back then. Go ahead.
is it A, Dylan Sinclair, B, Layla Day, C, Savannah Ray, or D, Adria Kane?
Oh man, it's so funny because all those names I do believe did win. I'm gonna go with Savannah Ray.
That is correct.
There we go.
You got. See, you had nothing to worry about with this game. You're doing great.
You do, because no, all those names are a blend in because I interviewed all of them. So trying to remember, wait a minute, which one? And of course, as I've said, I literally fly out to the Junos to represent. So, and again, one of those artists who amazing artist, but still needs that one, almost like the way Julie Black was. You
Mhm.
need that breakout. You know,
Yeah,
7 Day Fool was Julie Black's. She still needs her 7 Day Fool breakout to really show the rest of the world her amazing talent.
I agree. I agree. And it's definitely going to happen because she's
Yeah.
like, she's killing it.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question. This one is the tricky one,
Okay.
just to let you know. Okay.
Okay.
So this a Canadian singer sung background for Beyonce. So sang backgrounds on a song. Is it A, Party Next Door, B, Jesse Reyes, C, Daniel from the group Division, or D, Alicia Cara?
Say the names again.
Party Next Door,
Mm-hmm.
or B, Jesse Reyes,
Mm-hmm.
C, Daniel from Division, or D, Alicia Cara?
I'm gonna go with C.
Oh, Daniel from Division? No.
Yeah.
The answer
Okay, who
is
is it?
Jesse Reyes.
Really? I did
Yeah.
not know that.
Yeah.
Wow, good for Jesse. It's funny because Jesse is such a strong personality.
Mm-hmm.
I would never see Jesse singing background for anybody.
Right.
Unless of course maybe it's the Queen. But I
It's
can't, it's
probably
so
Beyonce.
that's so
Mhm.
funny. I cannot see, and because she has such a unique voice, wow. So you got me on that one. Good for you. I just live, and you see, and this is the other thing I think that keeps me going, because as much knowledge as I have, I don't have all the knowledge. And you
Mhm.
learn from young people like yourself that helps teach you, somebody like me, certain things. So I thank you for that, because the next time I talk to Jesse, I'm definitely going to jump on her on that one, going, why didn't you tell me you sang with Beyonce? You know,
Yeah,
but
it was so interesting to learn because the same with like she's such a star, you know,
yeah.
star, and I find a leader, you know, she does her own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a surprise for me too.
I can't. Wow. Like, I'm just trying to picture her singing background for, like I said, anybody. Because, like I
Mhm.
said, she's just such a forefront type of person. So good on her
Yeah,
for putting her ego in check to do something like that.
yeah,
So, no. And again, with her humble, strong, passionate, says how she feels, so proud of her. And it's funny because it seems like every Juno Award, I end up talking to her because she's either nominated or she's won. So
mhm.
you got to give her big ups for that.
Yeah, no, most definitely. She's another like amazing person. Anybody that I talk to that knows her has like amazing things to say about her. And I
Mhm.
remember too, like this mentorship program that I was a part of, Girl Connected. She was one of the speakers one time for one of our like chats. And she was just so down to earth and she stayed on like longer than like she was
That's
supposed
Jesse.
to. And she was just like giving information like nothing. It was like I really appreciated it. It was great.
That's Jesse. That's Jesse. Well, I didn't do too badly.
No, you did good. See, you were scared for nothing.
Hey, reputation is always on the line. And I'll tell you something else too. One of the things, very quickly, one of the things that I always think about whenever I'm doing this or anything, a couple of things. One, when I go in front of the microphone, whether it's interviewing, hosting, or whatever else, winning awards, which thank God that that stuff has happened. I know that I am representing my family.
Mhm.
I'm representing my parents who work their asses off to give me the means and opportunity to do these things, and also my old neighborhood that I
Mhm.
grew up in. Because back in the day, we were all family, and it didn't matter if you were in the neighborhood, which I was by Vaughan and St. Clair area. That
Okay.
was really my main growing up. It didn't matter if you were in Scarborough. It didn't matter if you were up at Jane and Finch. We were all a community. We were all a family. We grew up together. We would go to dances and parties and friends' backyards and things like that. And when I started doing this stuff, I always would think in my head, because I learned not just from people in the industry, I learned from them too. I learned
Mhm.
from my brother, my dad, my sister, my brother, like everybody. I learned from everybody. So I know every time I go up in front of a microphone, I'm not just representing me, I'm representing all of them. So I can't be stupid about things that I'm doing, because if I do something stupid, I disrespect them. So that always sits in the back of my head. I represent my family,
Mhm.
my crew, their legacy, and I connect it with what I'm doing. So I never want to mess up badly. I always want to do the best I can and watch it grow, so that when my name is on, like in Harry Jerome Award. Yeah, it says Rudy Blair, but I look at the last name Blair.
Mhm.
That represents my family. My family's name is going to be somewhere that can never be taken away. And for
Exactly.
me, that is extremely important. I might go, people might forget about me, but if they go through that list, they're going to go, oh, there's that name. RTDNA Awards or whatever. Yes, it's always the radio station, but there are times when the reporter gets his name down. Rudy Blair is there, you know. Hall of Fame for radio broadcasting in Humber. So far, I'm the only person of color in that Hall of Fame. My name is there, and hopefully there'll be more on there. But even if there's more, I'm still the first.
Yes. No one can take that
I'm
away
still
from
the
you.
first. Nobody can take that away from me. And again, that last name Blair is there. That last name Blair in something like that, prestigious, represents and gives honor to my family, my friends, my neighborhood, everybody that I care about and who's cared about me. It represents them as well. It's not just about me.
Man, Rudy, this was amazing. I'm so happy I got to speak to you today. You're representing your family well. You're representing Canada well. You're doing amazing things. Like I told you, I've been following you for so many years, and again, there's not a lot of Black people that we see in the media that's like doing these type of interviews stationed in Canada. There's very few. So thank you for putting in that hard work, for being the creative that you are. Um, I know there's more to come from you when it comes to awards and making history. So I'm excited to see what you're up to next.
Well, I have to say that with somebody first, thank you very much. And by the way, I got to make very quickly mention, um, for what I could tell, I was the first person to ever have a country music radio show in Canada.
Okay.
So that's something we can talk about again when we do a part two, hopefully.
Yes.
But it has been an honor to speak with you, and I know it makes me feel good knowing that the future for broadcasting is safe with somebody like yourself, because you're definitely a future leader, and you're going to make changes, you're going to make a difference, and you're going to bring honor to what we have, all the folks who are before me, um, and myself being in my position. You're going to honor all of that, and you're going to keep that legacy going. So congratulations to yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot coming from you. So thank you. Let the people know, where can we follow you? Where can we keep up with you? Where can we watch all your interviews?
Rudy Blair Entertainment Media, rudyblairmedia.com. That's the place to go to. I'm on all social media platforms, or as many of them as possible, because there's too many of them. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram. I do TikTok, but I hate TikTok, but I've got a couple of things up there. And former Twitter, X, yeah, there's stuff up there too, but they're going to keep trying to charge me $1 every year. I don't know how long I'm going to be on that. So really, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, I'm there too. So yeah, I'm there on the platforms, and just the hustle continues, and it's never gonna do the hustle. That it's never gonna end. Never gonna end.
All right. Thank you so much once again for your time, for all of the information that you gave to us. It's very fulfilling. So thank you so much. This is the Total R&B podcast. My name is Lorena. I am the host. This is a bi-weekly podcast. So we will be back in 2 weeks with a new interview.